Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Vince Molinaro, and welcome to this episode of the Lead the Future podcast. I'm very excited to have Brad Furtney, who is with us today. Brad is a seasoned executive with over 25 years' experience in building and scaling high potential companies. Currently, as the division president at EverCommerce, he's played a pivotal role in scaling multiple acquired software companies, overseeing revenue and EBITDA growth, as well as driving product development, process improvements, and organizational leadership, which is a deep passion of his. And throughout his career, Brett has gained expertise in sales, marketing, leadership, working across diverse industries such as technology, media, and packaged goods. And he's held a leadership role at prominent organizations, including EverCommerce, Twitter Canada, Bell Media, CBC Television, most notably in Olympic sponsorship, and Labatt Breweries. As a leader, Brad is known for his people first approach, focusing on leadership development, process optimization, and enhancing the customer experience. And outside in his personal life, he has a personal life. He is a dedicated family man, a weekend DIY enthusiast, and a lover of all things outdoors. I've been wanting to have Brad on the podcast for a while, and I'm so glad that we've had this opportunity to connect. So, welcome, Brad, to the Lead the Future podcast. Thanks for making time to be with us.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Vince.
So, Brad, let's start with a little bit of context in terms of your role and specifically with EverCommerce.
So I was brought into EverCommerce. We've acquired 50 companies over the last 7 or 8 years. Software companies, typically entrepreneurial-led, and they bring in leaders like myself to take over after the founder exits the business. And so what's exciting for me is the opportunity to bring in systems, processes, align the folks and people to drive revenue and grow the business. So that's why I'm here. It's the highlight of my career, to be honest with you, in terms of the opportunity to really make a difference. I've had serious numbers of roles in leadership in sales and marketing, but this is the first time to sort of pull it all together from a presidential standpoint. So I'm excited to share my story.
So I'd love to dive into that experience, right, of not only in the acquisition of these companies, then the integration work that you do afterwards in order to kind of drive the value. You know, if you were to kind of say, what are the top 2-3 things that you've learned is critical to success to any senior executive that finds him or herself in that position, what would you say?
It's a great question. I think when I look at leadership, I look at it, I simplify it. What are the 2 things that any senior executive is responsible for? Well, you have the financial aspect of the company, top line, bottom line, revenue, and EBITDA. And the second thing that you have a focus and priority is people. Because you can't deliver the revenue and EBITDA unless you align the organization and the people. So I know it's a simplified look at the operations, but honestly, I think that's the way to do it, because you grow and develop your people, you focus them, you point them in the right direction, you give them the tools to execute at all levels in the organization. So not just your direct reports, you try and communicate right down through the organization. If you do that well, and you have good products and you have good services and you take care of your customer, those are all important. But if you enable the organization, you'll drive revenue, you'll drive profitability, and you'll repeat that cycle year after year.
And so where is the company now, and what are some of the strategic challenges and opportunities it's facing over the next couple of years?
So great question. So EverCommerce acquired 50 some odd software companies over the last 7 or 8 years, as I mentioned, and we've divided into 3 sort of business units. We have a wellness division, we have a healthcare division, and we have a field service division. I'm in the field service, so I run 2 of the companies that are in field service. They're all software companies, and we provide the system of action for our customers to operate their businesses more effectively. So, scheduling, data management, payments processing are some of the key things that we focus on. So we're in that space. And the challenge we've had is we've acquired 50 companies, and now we're trying to scale as a company. We can't have 50 entities out there kind of doing their own thing. So we're starting to bring them together. So that's why we separated into 3 divisions: wellness, health, and EverPro. And within the EverPro, we're at this point in a transformation and optimization project that's really, again, bringing those, with about 15 companies in our division, 15 or 20, bring those into a more aligned structure to add value to our customers, to drive profitability and revenue for the organization, and to give career and people advancements for our staff.
And so, what have you found in that kind of bringing together? Because that's, I suspect harmonizing around a culture, aligning around that, the strategy and the execution of it. What have you learned is critical there to get leaders sort of on the same page?
I think there's really a couple. They sound simple, but as you know, aligning an organization and the culture is not simple. But I would say that the key difference for how I lead is starting with sort of systems and processes. So when I talk about systems and processes, I talk about things like annual business planning cycles. So remember, as I mentioned, we acquired these entrepreneurial-led companies. They weren't strong in terms of their systems and processes. They didn't have an annual cycle of planning. They didn't have OKRs. I'm an OKR disciple. I love objective and key results. We do it on a quarterly basis, annual basis. We have it at company, functional, and we even have it at the personal level in my group. So you give them the functions or the systems to run the business. And then I've also invested in leadership development, because if you can give them the systems, you can give them sort of, here's the long-term plan, here's where we're going. But if you don't give them the investment in leadership development, that's where I think the struggle is to enable an organization. So 5 years ago when I joined, there wasn't systems in place. There wasn't leadership development. And I recognized I had really good people that knew the business, but what they didn't have was the experience leading and following a defined sort of process. So I started with my direct reports. Year 1, I looked at all my direct reports. I have 2 companies. I had 2 separate leadership teams, and we invested in leadership development for my direct reports, one-on-one coaching. What's it like to be a leader? What's it like to have accountability? What are the skill sets to make decisions? And so we focused on accountability, we focused on decision-making, and we focused on dealing with, difficult conversations. Those are kind of the 3 things we started with. That was year 1. Year 2, we expanded the group. And it's interesting with coaching, some people gravitate to one-on-one coaching and some people are less comfortable with that. So we did some group work. We thought, let's bring a group of people together and see how coaching a group works. And so this group coaching, we found at a level down in the organization, so below the director level, it really resonated with them. They could bring shared problems, shared opportunities. Between 2 companies, we brought different people from different companies together, and they shared that. So that cross-pollination of ideas from different organizations that I was responsible for really, made a difference. So year 2 and 3, we're doing sort of that group coaching. And then year 4 and year 5, we've expanded it to frontline managers. So first-time managers that have, got recently promoted are now into a group coaching. And we've even extended it to a program around, we call it Next Gen. So who are those high potential individuals that don't have people reporting to them today, that want to learn and grow? And so we've got them into a group coaching program. So we've looked at the program over a number of years to really drive performance. So as I said before, let me summarize it. I want to be really successful in driving revenue and EBITDA. How am I going to do that? I'm going to enable the organization. How do I enable the organization? Systems and processes and leadership development. And that's sort of pulling all that together has allowed us to be successful in both companies.
And describe that success. What's been the impact of this very, and congrats on just making the investments, paying attention to the leadership side. And I know, knowing you through past conversations, I know that's always been an area of passion. But you've been able to translate that passion into action, as you've described it, and sustained over 5 years. So, what's been that impact that you've seen with your leaders, both in terms of how they've been able to drive your, strategic priorities, but also from a culture standpoint?
Well, I think the interesting thing is we know it's been successful from a business standpoint. We've had 16% compounded annual growth in the companies, super strong profit levels. So from financial metrics, we've checked the box, right?
Yeah.
And then from a leadership and cultural perspective, engagement scores, if you will, we survey our staff every year. And so I get to compare my companies across the entire EverCommerce ecosystem of other companies and how they do. So the engagement scores for my team this year are 80%.
Wow.
So we had an 80% engagement score across both companies. That was 22 points higher than EverCommerce overall, and 11 points higher than the industry benchmark, our third-party provider that did the survey, suggested as a target. So deliver the financials, and from an engagement score, we knocked it out of the park. But probably more importantly is the confidence that our people have experienced. And to watch the growth of some of my leaders, remember, we acquired these companies. There was no investment in leadership development. They were entrepreneurial, founder-led. And typically a founder they do it all. And, they don't give responsibility to the organization. Well, I arrived 5 years ago. I don't know the software. I'm not a programmer per se, but I know how to enable organizations. And I have passion around that. And so to watch these people grow and experience and the confidence and the decision-making abilities they have now throughout the organization, we get to, not that we're a well-oiled machine, because I don't think you ever quite get there, but we're certainly, we operate much more effectively than we did 5 years ago.
It's interesting you use the term confidence, because I think I've been thinking about that a lot, largely because, we tend to get brought in when an organization is about to undergo a significant strategic shift. It immediately shifts the expectations of leaders. They've got to develop new mindsets. They've got to develop new capabilities. And, through our work, we do find, they really rally together to lead the organization forward. And it is this confidence that I see as well. They're more confident in themselves. They are more confident in the peers that they're working with, that, they have my back. I can trust them to do the right things by me and by the company. And so that confidence variable you speak of is really important. And I don't know, to the extent that we spend a lot of time talking about that when we're talking about leadership development, whether it's through coaching programs or other programs. What's your sense on that?
The confidence piece, I think it comes down to, I'm going to drill it back to employee engagement. What drives employee engagement? And there's studies out there that say 70% of your employees' engagement is around your direct manager and the management and how you're led. And 30% is around the activities, the values, the things you do to make the environment engaging and let's call it fun, right? So let's focus on that 70%. If we're not investing in leadership development at all levels in the company, how do we expect to move the needle on employee engagement, right?
Yeah.
We all talk about employee engagement is a priority to drive business profitability and business success. But if we're not investing in the 70%, which is your direct manager, we're missing the point here. And my numbers may be off slightly, but I'm sure you have research that suggests that or higher in terms of what really drives engagement. It's around the leadership. So my dream was to get to an organization where I could take my passion of investing in people and see if it worked. And over 5 years, investing in the team, from my direct levels to the levels below, and even to those high potentials, in coaching and giving them the tools and resources. And what I haven't mentioned is you need to find a partner to do that. I can't do it on my own. So I found an external coaching organization. Michelle Ferrari is her name, and she was fantastic at helping me build a program. But what we also did, it wasn't just like, okay, you run the program and I have nothing to do with it. I check in every 2 weeks. How's the program going? What are the themes? Really good at keeping confidentiality from the program, so I don't know the specifics, but I know the themes. And every year we start the program. What do we want to focus on? Accountability at all levels, dealing with difficult conversation, managing through change. We are going through a massive restructuring right now. So how do my leaders handle change? How confident are they? How comfortable they are? Because if they're not comfortable, if they're not resilient, I know you talk about resiliency in your books. If they don't have resiliency, how do we expect the frontline employees to manage through that change, right?
Yeah.
And so investing in leadership development and the leaders makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. So given the work you've done over the last 5 years, which has been, truly outstanding, and you've got the results to showcase that, what do you know now that you didn't know when you started 5 years ago that could be helpful for another C-suite executive that's starting to think about embarking on this type of journey?
Oh, it's there's some really great learning. First is I had the support of my senior leaders. I didn't have to fight for the budget every year. I put it in the budget and they gave me the green light, make it happen. So we had the financial commitment to the organization. And if you look at, if I take the investment in my program and I spread it out over all employees, because even though I'm focused on the leaders of the organization and the high potentials, it impacts every single employee, right? And so it's a relatively inexpensive cost per employee investment. We've taken a long-term commitment. I didn't do one and done. Hey, check the box. I did leadership development in 2020. Every year we've taken it and we built the foundation. We expanded the program. What I also didn't mention, what I'm really excited about this year, part of the next generation talent is they're being coached by the managers that were in the program 4 years ago. So we've created a coach the coach program so that internally the frontline managers are supporting those high potential employees. Finding that right partner. You need to find a partner like your organization that one leans into the strategy of the company. So my partner understands the strategy. They know our long-term goals and objectives. They align the coaching program to deal with the challenges we're faced with right now. And so that long-term perspective, consistent investment, and having someone championing it. So the CEO, the president, someone has to champion the program. And I think you look at all those sort of examples. That's what I've learned that's made the biggest impact.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a couple of things I want to go a little deeper on. So what your experience also reveals is one that I'm really starting to understand, right, is that I think kind of how we've done leadership development in the past isn't really no longer relevant to today, right? We just see too many managers and leaders overwhelmed, overloaded. Organizations are doing a lot. Like you say, you're embarking on a restructuring. Our research shows that organizations are facing anywhere from 3 to 4 strategic challenges at once. Another big firm has just launched a study that shows it's not one transformation organizations are doing. It's 3 to 4 transformations at once. So the load on managers and leaders is significant. And there probably would be a tendency to say they're too busy for development. And yet, what I find is, like you have found, is you still made that investment in development, but it was the consistency, probably the simplicity. You didn't do um, everything that's latest and greatest in leadership development. You really honed in on a few key things, and you kind of stayed the course. Is that kind of? I mean, it sounds like to me that's pivotal to your success.
I didn't really think about it that way, but we didn't take too big of a bite out of the apple to start with.
Yeah.
I started with my direct managers because I'll give you an example. And I share this story with my staff and we laugh about it. But I sat down with one of the companies. We had a leadership team meeting. Let's take day 3. And I said to the group, I said, how often do you meet as a leadership team? And remember, it was just acquired from a founder that had run the business for 20 years. And one my man raised his hand and he said, Brad, this is our first leadership team meeting. Company's 20 years old, and never once had they collectively sat in a room together to discuss the business. The founder would meet with Vince, meet with Brad individually, and make decisions one-on-one, but not as a group. It's like, oh, okay, I'm starting here. But that gave me the sort of level set of where we're starting from. And so year one was the front line, my direct line managers, and then year two, one level below, bringing the groups together. I think that the biggest thing that I learned that I was surprised about was not everyone wants one-on-one coaching. Not everyone's comfortable with that. But in a group setting, it sometimes can bring people, it's infectious, if you will. It brings them into the group, and over time, they'll share their challenges, their opportunities, what they're struggling with being a leader, and they can support each other. So I know there's conversations that happen outside the coaching sessions, if you will, to support each other. So creating a community of leaders within the group, cross-functionally has been, and cross-company has been a really, really good benefit.
So let's as we begin to wind down, let's talk a little bit about this idea of community of leaders, and what has been your experience in. And it sounds like you've created it in your business. What's your experience around that?
Oh. Well, if I look back at my career, I would say I didn't network enough early in my career. And it's something we should teach kids in education, high school, whatever. Learning to network, learning to reach out to like-minded individuals, find a mentor, find someone that's good at what you're interested in, and just have a conversation. People generally, they generally want to help others. And so finding that community, I think, has been a big learning for me, and that I didn't anticipate the power that it would have. I'll be honest, part of the reason we did the group coaching, Vince, was to be more effective with our dollar resources. We didn't have the full budget to give everyone direct line coaching. But what we found was it's actually really, really powerful, right? Yeah. Especially if the team leans in. And what my coach would say is that when one person starts to lean in and be vulnerable in that group coaching, gives other people the permission to do the same. And it's a cone of silence. They support each other. Nothing leaves that group, and they really sort of leave going, I've got this. Oh, and so-and-so's dealing with the same problem. And so I'm not alone in my approach to being a better leader.
And not only am I not alone, is someone may have already experienced or solved the challenge or problem I'm facing today. So why don't I reach out to them for advice, right?
Yeah, I think we all try and do stuff on our own.
Yeah.
And we fail to realize someone's probably solved that problem somewhere. It can give you that bit of advice to go, hey, have you thought about this, Brad? Have you thought about taking it an angle this way? Or I really like that. Go deeper there. You're onto something.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So what would be your final, set of words of wisdom or advice to senior executives that are looking to really scale accountability as you've done, build a greater sense of community among leaders, which in turn drives better strategy, execution, and performance?
Yeah. The one thing we've done in every annual plan for both companies, grow and develop our people, is a strategic pillar. I call them big rocks. What are the big rocks we're focused on? And it is non-negotiable. We are going to invest in our people. And it's a number of things. Could be hiring plan is part of it, but leadership development every year was in our plan and is still in our plan, even though we're going through this, significant change again. So make it a strategic priority. Commit the resources. Resources is obviously funding part of it, but also your commitment as a leader to support. I think sometimes I'm a cheerleader because first of all, I have energy around this. So it's really easy to celebrate the wins. And I see an individual grow and develop. Today I was presented an annual plan on our culture initiatives. And a year ago, we gave the responsibility to one of our frontline individuals, high performers. He doesn't manage people, but he's responsible for our cultural activities. And we have a calendar. And he presented professionally. He was prepared. He's passionate around it. And I think, wow, a year and a half ago, he'd have been a nervous wreck. coming
Right.
in and trying to present. And I look at, he's been in the program, and his growth as an example has been outstanding. So we celebrate that.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
And again, the last thing I was just,
Yeah.
no surprise to you, find a partner that can support you in executing your plan.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Brad, for just sharing a tremendous amount of wisdom, and really I appreciate and am inspired by your passion for leadership and leadership development, and your approach that really, you demonstrate a commitment over the long term, and you're seeing the results in your leaders and managers, and ultimately in your business. So, thank you for making time to share your story with us.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Vince.